Well, welcome everyone. I am so excited to see you're here today. We have a very special guest with us as part of the nationally syndicated Igniting Your Dynamic Self series. I'm your host, Wendy Bjork, and we're always looking for ways to empower and inspire you to live your best life. Today, I am visiting with author Andrew Kapp. Andrew is best known for his perennial best-selling The Last Law of Attraction book you'll ever need, which I brought with me today so that you can grab it when we're done. And after selling 100,000 copies and garnering thousands of five-star reviews, he realized the one type of reader he never would reach was the one who was resistant to the term law of attraction itself. So he challenged himself to write a new book, giving readers just as much value and action steps for improving their lives without ever actually saying the term law of attraction in any of his explanations. The result is a brief, user-friendly follow-up that can be gifted to anyone, regardless of their beliefs. The book is titled Just Feel Good, and Andrew has now taken this message out to the world in this new, more concise way, paving the way for more readers to be served in the process. So welcome to the program, Andrew.
Wendy, thanks so much for having me. Really glad to be here and looking forward to wherever we might take this conversation.
Wonderful. So I am always curious when I speak to authors. Have you always wanted to be a writer, like since you were a little kid?
No, when I was younger, I wanted to be a comic book artist or a cartoonist. So I wanted to create, excuse me, I wanted to create, but it was more with visual than it was with the written or spoken word. So this is a bit of an unpredictable direction, but not to put a limit on myself as we all often do. Growing up, usually you're either like, the math student or the verbal reading writing student. And I always was comfortable in that regard. So when it was time to make this direction, it was a very easy transition over for me to kind of like dive in, and felt very natural when I started doing it.
That's neat. So, and I know putting together a book seems like a pretty large, daunting process. Interesting, maybe. Do you have a process that you like to use when you're writing or to, I guess, inspire you when you're writing?
So I have an evolving process, meaning with who I am and my skill set and my tendencies and my personality, what and my experience, what in the moment is going to be the most efficient way of getting my ideas from my brain into an articulated form that's going to work. And what I mean when I say that is, like, when I wrote the last law of attraction book you'll ever need to read, I sat in front of my laptop and I just typed out and spit out a first draft, and then I massaged it. And I did the same thing with Just Feel Good, only I didn't sit really and type it because more and more I've noticed that I'm not typing fast enough to keep up with my thoughts.
Mm.
So, given technology and evolving technology, what I did was I pulled out my phone and I pulled out my memo app, and not my recorder app because I didn't want to transcribe anything afterwards, but the memo, hoping that the AI would pick up my language better. And I actually spoke into it and it dictated it for me. And that was my new first draft to massage. Because as you could probably tell, I speak a lot faster than I can ever type. So it's an evolving process for me, whatever's going to work for me.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting because you're right. We do speak faster than we can think sometimes. And to capture everything, you would have to do a memo. And I find myself even just writing my short articles, I think of something and then I forget what I was going to write. And then I thought, well, if it's meant to be said, it'll come back around.
Mm.
So just keeping track of our thoughts, that's
Yeah. And
really
I know that
important.
feeling too, of you're in the middle of one thought and you're putting it as perfectly as you can put it, and you're landing it, but you're like, there's this other thing that you want to say, but first you got to type this one thing out. So it's like, it's almost like you're in a battle with yourself. And I think for writers, that might be the biggest challenge, because my experience with writers is their biggest challenge is getting their thoughts onto paper. They don't have any trouble thinking. Their trouble is, how do I get what's in here out there? And when you've hit the sweet spot, but you've got five things you want to do, at least in my experience, it could be a very frustrating thing to try to keep up with yourself when you're never as fast as you want to be.
Right. And then that's not even talking about being interrupted. I mean, just having that
Mm-hmm.
space of silence. And So do you like it really quiet when you're writing, or do you need background music or white noise?
So that is another evolving thing for me also. I experiment with all of them. Here's what I'll say. If there's any noise, it needs to be the noise that I choose. So if I'm playing music and it has a certain beat and a certain rhythm, I'm good with it. But if there's like, someone out in the street and they're playing loud music and the beat of the rhythm is like interrupting and throwing me off, I'm like, no, I can't do that. So um I'm not sure if this is gonna be video or audio, but I have like this huge sound cancellation, not mechanical, it's just like natural that I'll put over my head to drown out as much noise as I need to whenever I'm like really in the zone and trying to put something down.
Mm, that's good advice because I have, well, my boys are older now, but when they were younger, like, I love you, but just give me a half hour,
Hmm.
please.
Yeah. And a little tip for people, I mean, I hope this would help others. I've really gotten used to the idea and the concept and embracing the idea and concept that everything I put down first really is a first draft. I want to give myself permission to put it very imperfectly because once it's in front of me, it's way easier to play with and toy with because it's there. I don't even have to like erase it. I'll copy paragraphs and paste them so that the original is untouched, and then I'll mess around with the other one. That way, if I ever go too far, I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. I still have the original piece. So you could probably tell the way I'm speaking. I think a really good thing for authors is knowing what annoys them, knowing what bothers them, knowing what distracts them, and taking that not excuse me, taking that knowledge and doing whatever they can, making whatever moves or decisions they can to give themselves enough freedom and space to write anyway, and also enough freedom and space to fix it at their own pace so that they never feel like they're missing out on whatever ideas they want to put down on paper.
Mm, that's great advice. Yeah, because otherwise you just beating yourself up because you didn't get it right or you forgot something or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, it's huge challenge. I think our biggest challenge in anything is managing ourselves because we love, without even, we don't realize it, but we love getting in our own way. And what I mean by that is the last Law of Attraction book you'll ever need to read came in at about 208 pages, and it took me 9.5 weeks to write, which is really fast for 200 pages.
Mhm.
I wrote Just Feel Good, which was shorter, but I wrote that in less than a month.
Wow.
Because I'm like, well, and again, because I'm using my phone as a crutch and I'm dictating and everything.
Mhm.
But I believe in kind of like, pushing yourself forward and going past the limit. And then again, you can always go back and correct yourself and edit something. But
Mhm.
I think everyone listening can go a lot faster and be a lot more efficient and productive than they might realize.
Mhm. Yeah, that's great advice. Yeah, definitely. So, and I know you just mentioned about, it took you a lot shorter length of time to write this third book. Tell me a little bit about what even inspired you for the title, of the new book.
Mm. So, it's interesting. Like first of all, like you said in your introduction, your awesome introduction, thank you very much. One realization I had and I got so much positive feedback for the last Law of Attraction book you'll ever need to read, and a lot of people that they do recommend to their friends and they recommend to family and they really spread the word. But also there's this stigma around the term Law of Attraction. So I said, okay, if I'm going to try to write a book that will be for the Law of Attraction readers also, but also be kind of like an on ramp for people that are a little more resistant to that, what idea or what concept is really important that really gets down to the heart of things, that is like the value of this to begin with. And I was like, okay, well, this is all about positive emotion. When you're feeling good while thinking about what you have or what you want or both, in my experience, that's where you do leverage the power of the law of attraction or the law of vibration or whatever term anyone might want to use. So this is more about just trying to be really concise and really efficient in my messaging, and having a title that people, even if they don't know yet specifically where I'm going, they kind of get the idea right away. Because there's all that old expression, don't judge a book by its cover. But when it comes to a book's cover and its title, people are going to judge it. So you have to be very intentional about what you're saying if you want people to give it a second look and maybe consider buying and reading it.
Which I highly recommend because once you open it, I mean, the simple steps inside, I mean, from just being grateful to thinking of what you want in a good way. We are so used to thinking bad things. like thinking of
Mm.
what I don't want. And people need to flip that around because they don't realize when they're ruminating on what they don't want. I think it's actually bringing more things to them that they don't want.
Yeah, and I agree. And it's interesting. It's like regardless of whether you believe in the law of attraction, I like looking at this at different angles because the beauty of this is regardless of your beliefs, all the different angles in my experience still point to the same thing. So you're welcome to believe in a vibrational universe and the fact that your thoughts literally are vibrating at a frequency that are attracting other like frequencies. But if that doesn't really mesh up with your belief system, well, what about your subconscious mind and the power of your subconscious mind? And the fact that whether you're saying something good about yourself or something bad about yourself, good or bad about your life, you were sending really potent instructions to the most powerful supercomputer in the world that is going to basically solve the discrepancies between where your life is right now and the thoughts that you're having. So you could either have your life where it is right now and have bad thoughts and have the subconscious mind kind of meet you there, or you could have good positive thoughts and have your subconscious mind say, okay, I'm reading these instructions. I'm not, I have no emotions about it. I'm just taking these instructions in. What can I do with my powerful processing capability to help manipulate my person's behavior and their tendencies in order to invite this other reality that they're presenting me with?
Right. And my background is I've had a chronic illness since I was about 15 of MS. And I think once I was diagnosed in this, it's probably for anybody, you receive this horrible, diagnosis from your doctor and it just spins you onto, all different, trajectories. And I think what really helped me was my boss at the time was into personal development and open to new ideas. It's a long time ago and it was before it was cool. So I think just the fact of staying open to different ideas, to things that can help you on all different levels, like your books, like, what you have to share with people. We said at the beginning that everything happens in the right time. So, like you said, having this third book come out that doesn't have the law of attraction necessarily wound through the title, but still the same theme of being grateful or talking nice to yourself, treating yourself with kindness. I think some of those things are things that we all need to do.
Mm, I couldn't agree more. And it transcends all different things. So here's a perfect example, just even related to what we're talking about. You mentioned my third book. One book we didn't mention was the one in the middle called Three Words I Use to Sell 100,000 Books, which is completely out of, the business branding, if you want to call it that, of these two books. And, a business savvy person might say, Andrew, why are you taking that detour? Why did you go from the last law of attraction book you ever need to read to this book where you explained your marketing process of getting that book into people's hands? And for me, it's because I was inspired to do so. And I think it's really, it's such a cliche to follow your passion or follow, what you love or things like that. But if you can structure your life in a way that you give yourself freedom and permission to do that, it opens up all sorts of opportunities, even to say nothing of money or success, but just enjoying the moment, rather than pressuring myself to do another law of attraction book, which, is silly for me again, since I have mine called The Last One You'll Ever Need to Read. It's like, I don't have to fit myself or pigeonhole myself in that category all the time. And I think, whether it's about your work, whether it's about relationships, it's about your health, your body, or anything, I think people should, so long as we're not hurting anybody else, they should feel very free and very welcome to stretch out of, the status quo of what they think should be expected of them.
I agree. So, are there any special meanings behind the cover of your new book or the cover
Yeah.
art from the brand new book?
So first of all, full disclosure, this is the first interview where I'm actually talking about the cover of the book. So full disclosure, this cover went through literally
Mm.
hundreds of minor revisions. Finalizing the cover took longer than writing the book. And it's because I was really struggling with like, what is the message that I want to send in the cover with a title that's so short, and something that I would hope wouldn't look generic or wouldn't look just like anything else, but would also be clear enough that people can see exactly what the title is. And, behind me, you can see it's like, here we have like this nature background and we've got kind of like a scroll or a crumpled up like old piece of paper, and I kind of view it almost like a treasure map where someone's in a forest and they're looking for buried treasure, and they've got this map, and rather than having like X marks the spot, it just says just feel good. And the I guess the twist is that I don't know if it comes across, but my mindset is like the map is actually the treasure. The message of the map is the treasure of just feel good. So that was like the final concept and final idea that I went with, because I think it's such a great way of really, telling people, like, you read this book, like there's no surprise of what this book is going to be about. I'm trying
Mm.
to show you the value of feeling good, where it leads, how to do it, and how to get out of your own way so that you can do it consistently enough to get the value and benefit of it.
So does it have similar steps as in your other two books where they're just easy steps for people to take
So
on a daily basis?
yeah, well, so the second book, that's a whole different thing because that's just a marketing book.
Hmm.
Last Law of Attraction book you ever need to read had a very specific number of manifesting methods, which was basically me again giving people hopefully user-friendly steps and methods that enable them to feel good, to feel positive emotion while they're thinking about what they have or what they want, or both what they have and what they want. For just feel good, again, getting out of the language pattern of law of attraction and the language pattern of manifestation, I included a number of methods that I just called feel good go-tos.
Mm.
And some of them you can even call manifesting methods. Others are just ways of feeling good. One for like, as an example of one, I just did this thing called, I call like the miracle mantra. And that's not exactly like a manifesting method, but it's just something that when you say it, it feels good. One extra thing though that I did put in the new book that was never in the original, was like my own personal manifesting method that I use every single day. Just
Mm.
because it was kind of time to articulate that in a book that people can access also.
Ooh, that's pretty cool. So that's definitely a reason right there to download it or get it on back pre-sale, I should say.
Yeah, hopefully, I'm hoping that people are inspired and they might check it out and they might like it.
Hmm. So when you talk about the miracle mantra, is that something that you said you do it every morning, or do you have
So
another process that you do along with it?
the process that I do every single day is different. The miracle mantra is something I do often, and so here's the concept of the miracle mantra. Everyone's familiar with affirmations, and
Hmm.
everyone's got their opinions of it. And most affirmations, in my experience, are about, we'll just say attacking a certain part of your life. Like, I'm gonna focus on money, or I'm gonna focus on love, or I'm gonna focus on something like that. I asked myself, okay, what if we can have, and I guess we'll call it an affirmation, but what if there was a statement of intention that actually covered a lot of your bases, and it was a more loose, relaxed thing that you can do? And the one that I put in the book, you'll even see, I'll just, it says, I am happy, grateful, safe, complete, radiant, loving, powerful, and full of harmony.
Mm.
And you can see that hits a lot of different bases and leaves a lot of space for financial success or relationship success or just ease and contentment in the moment. And one of the book's bonuses, I actually give different versions of the mantra so that people can see a better way of how they might want to modify something that personally works for them. But the whole idea of the miracle mantra, which I don't do every day, but that I do frequently and that I play and experiment with frequently, is that you don't have to be stuck in one category of life when you're doing an affirmation. You don't have to be stuck in one way of doing something. As long as it lights you up and feels good, and you might want a shorter one because that's a little bit long-winded, but as
Hmm.
long as you enjoy it, that's the whole point, because you're putting yourself in a headspace of actually leaning in the direction of the things that you want.
Sure. And that covers a lot of areas. So did you make yourself like a poster with that so you can see it every day? Does that help you with staying focused on your mission?
So that's something that people certainly can do. My approach for it, and well, here's my approach for it. You can see, like, I don't know if people saw, I was reading it off of because I didn't have it memorized. Because I experiment with different ones. But when I do settle on one specifically, my focus is to kind of like look at it and keep saying it until it's memorized. Because I think a poster is great, but because I'm on the run all the time and I might not be in front of that poster,
Mhm.
I like just have it like in my mind where it's like instant and automatic, but also not something that I just breeze through. It's something where okay, I know this thing by heart now, but every word that I say, I'm going to be very intentional and very focused and very present as I'm saying it. Otherwise, there's no point to it. And by the way, if anyone's asking or wondering, you could say it out loud or you just think it inside your head. It doesn't matter as long as you're, as long as you're experiencing the message and you're thinking the message, that's all that really matters.
Sure. So during your, excuse me. So which of your books was the easiest to write? I mean, was it this one because it was shorter, or your marketing book, or the last law of attraction book you'll ever need to read?
So definitely the last law of attraction book you'll ever need to read. And the reason was that's because I think a lot of authors can relate to this. I was just in not only a zone, but the zone. Like as I was writing that one, there was a level of inspiration that, it's kind of like magic in a bottle that I wish I could I wish I really could bottle that. And that's not to say that I wasn't in the zone for the other books, but that one in particular, given that I struggled to get it down to 200. I wanted to have it less than 200 pages. I wanted even closer than that because I was just like a well of words and of explanations, and I couldn't contain it. So it
Mhm.
was such a fun, easy process of having that pour out of me. So that one still is the winner for the easiest one to write.
Hmm. So have you heard any feedback, anything from people that, they're finding themselves being, maybe stuck, or something that keeps them from going forward in their process, with like the last law of attraction book you'll
Yeah,
ever need
well,
to read?
so I don't get a lot of feedback in terms of like they're stuck using that because usually actually the hopefully the book addresses it for them. So I'll say this, what I've identified, and this is based on personal experience, by the way, also. Um, we have this amazing gift of getting in our own way. It really is funny. And I think particular to this kind of content, when you learn like, oh, there's manifesting methods or there's, whatever it might be, one thing that people often do that gets in their own way is they worry that they're not doing it right. They're perfectionists. Like it has to be done like if I don't do this perfect in the exact way, then how am I expecting to get what I want? And the whole point is it's not about doing it perfectly. It's about just enjoying it. Like the key to getting out of your own way and key to doing it perfectly is just that if you have any level of positive emotion when you're doing it. And that doesn't mean you don't have to feel amazing. You don't have to feel euphoric. You don't have to feel ecstatic. You don't have to be excited. You don't have to be jumping out of your chair. All you have to do at the bare minimum is just feel a little bit of relief or a little bit of ease. Anything that isn't negative is positive. And once people realize that, then they start to get out of their own way. But that's usually like the big thing because once you do that, well, then you rationalize, well, oh, I guess then I shouldn't do this. I shouldn't try if I don't know if it's going to work. It's like, hey, if it feels good, it's going to work. But the beauty of it is like, even if it didn't work, let's pretend it's not going to work. If you feel good, you're still getting a win in the moment in and of itself, because those 5 minutes or 3 minutes or however long you spend feeling good about this thing is time in the day where you otherwise may have been stressed out of your job or your work or your business or your spouse or whatever else. By intentionally doing this, even if you didn't get the thing that you wanted, you're giving yourself, your mental self and your physical self and your spiritual self the gift of this positive experience in your life. And that's something that you don't want to take for granted or waste.
Right. And when you said about, kind of sounds like I mean, part of it is to balance all these different aspects of your life to, be the whole person. Because when we're trying to do things perfectly, we're taken away from something else that we should be doing. We're
Mm,
focusing, I think, on getting it right instead of just doing it, like you said.
yeah. Our need, in my opinion, sometimes our need for perfection prevents us from achieving excellence.
Hmm.
It's like excellence is, you'll actually get that when you're not stuck in a mindset or a requirement of perfection.
Right. Yeah. So just get out and do it.
Mhm. Yeah.
Get
And
to
be
it.
willing to be, quote unquote bad at it. I'm watching my language. Like I'll just say it's okay to be really bad at something in the beginning or feel like you're really bad, because what you're doing is you're giving yourself the gift and experience of experimenting with something and see how it feels. That's
Mhm.
why like, I offered a good variety of manifesting methods in the last law of attraction book you all need to read. Yes, I am of the opinion that all of them are awesome. And yes, I'm of the opinion that they're all user friendly. But that doesn't mean that all of them are of the kind of style that each person's personality would enjoy, which is why I gave the variety.
Mm.
They can find anyone, and they can, it doesn't have to be my book. It can be on my YouTube channel or someone else's YouTube channel. The whole point is just finding something that works for you, that's the point of variety. Variety isn't about making sure you do every single one because you have to. It's about having the option of every single one so that you can find a couple or even just one that actually works for you personally.
Mhm. Right. We don't have to do, like you said, every single one perfectly. We don't have to do everything, that our subconscious tells us we need to do. It's
Mhm.
all about just, like you said earlier, just feeling good.
Yeah,
So,
that's why I titled the new book Just Feel Good. It's like, listen, I realize it might not feel easy, but regardless, it definitely is simple. Easy or not, it's simple. And when you make it simple, it gets easier.
sure. Yeah, because nothing good happens inside our comfort zone, right?
Yeah, it's one of those. It was interesting because I think a lot of people realize like their comfort zone expands a lot faster and a lot more efficiently when they're willing to not judge themselves so harshly as they experiment and try new things.
Right. Yeah. So what's your favorite feel good go to, I should say?
So it's actually in both books, and my like one of my like I guess it's my favorite. It kind of changes every day, but the favorite one today is it's a gratitude blitz, which
Mm,
is really just a situation where you set a timer for 1 minute, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, however long you want, and you just think of as many things in your life to be grateful for as possible. And the reason that I like that is because it's so you can do it anywhere. You can do it any place. You don't have to like sit down. You don't have to close your eyes. You don't have to get into a meditation, even though you're welcome to. But you could be riding the bus. You could be on the subway. You could be in your car. Obviously, be careful, and if you're driving, make sure that takes priority. But you can be in so many different situations or opportunities where you're just thinking about things that you have in your life to be grateful for, and you'll really pleasantly surprise yourself as you go on and realize how much you have, even in the midst of whatever struggles you're going through. I often tell people, 20 seconds into something like this, you'll be like, okay, whatever. But, 60 seconds, 80 seconds, 120 seconds, as you think of more and more things, you're like, whoa, okay, yeah, life isn't perfect, but it's a lot better than I might have been acknowledging. But now that I can acknowledge it, I wonder if Andrew's right about the fact that will invite even more things for me and even more reasons for me to be happy and grateful in the future.
right. Because we aren't given more if we're not grateful for what we have now.
Mm, exactly.
So is there anything that you wish you'd have done differently with either of your three books?
Um, So this will really speak to the fact that every author has their own struggle and it's almost like an unexpected thing. Um, when I do my next book, I was basically from the cover design standpoint for certain reasons, I needed both a Mac operating system and Windows operating system.
Mm,
And it was a nightmare for a number of reasons. So I am going to do whatever I need to do next time around to take Windows out of the process. And that's the thing that Mac is so much better. But the kind of obstacles and headaches that I ran into with Windows specifically for this they were horrible. So
mm,
as weird as it sounds, it's not even about like the writing process. It was the cover creation process. No more two operating systems. One operating system, way more efficient, way less stress, way better for my time and my sanity.
mm. Yeah, that sounds kind of stressful having two different operating systems and trying to mesh that all together. Yeah.
Yes. And I'll tell you, like, so I thought that I'll actually, I'll give people like a backstage pass look into these things here. I had like the paperback cover all set, and the way it works for Amazon, it's like you put the whole thing, you publish one big image that has the front cover, the back cover, and the spine. And I used their grid and their cutout lines to make sure that everything was lined up right. And they still told me that the spine was too large, and like the wording on it, even though it fits. So I was like, I wasn't prepared for that because I'd already layered all the images and I couldn't really isolate the spine on the final file that I had. So I basically had to deconstruct all this work that I did to get to that point, undo the spine, redo the spine. And it took me 4 or 5 tries. And every time I did a try, I had to restart my computer and go into boot camp, go into Windows and make a change there and go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So it literally took me close to an hour to make that change where, if only I'd anticipated that and made something a little bit smaller and made it work, I wouldn't have not had to gone through that stress. But that's kind of like one version of what I did throughout the entire process of tweaking the cover and trying to get it perfect.
Hmm. So did you self-publish all 3 books?
Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, I don't know if I recommend that for people. As you can see, because I self-published, I decided to do the cover myself and all that. So everyone needs to make a decision for themselves. For me, it wasn't even financial. It wasn't like, oh, I don't want to spend money on someone else doing it. It's more like I'm just a control freak. So I don't think a big publisher would have ever let me get away with the cover for the last Law of Attraction book you'll ever need to read, because I intentionally left my name off of it. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't want anything distracting or detracting from the title itself. So part of the reason that I self-publish is because I get to make, as long as we're within reason for what technology will let me do, I get to make, for better or worse, all of my own decisions on every aspect of it.
Hmm. Yeah, I was going to ask you why you did leave your name off of it, but
I like it. So, and I'll tell you, my vision. I'm from New York. I envision when I was putting the book together and putting the cover together, um, people on the subway reading the book, and I know what it's like to be on the subway and see someone reading a book and being a little curious about like the title or whatever, but like, their thumbs are covering, like I couldn't even tell. And it's like, should it be a weird thing where I'm gonna go up to a stranger and like, hey, sorry, just so you know, I've been looking at you and looking at your book. Can you please tell me what you're reading? It's like, no, you don't even want that. So I wanted to make a cover that it was so clear about what this thing was, almost like a magazine, that it would save people the awkward step of like asking the stranger, but also very memorable and very, very vivid, that right then and there they can go on Amazon and look it up and buy it.
wow, I love that. Yeah. So, I mean, it's your cover. I don't have the new one yet, but just the way your cover is laid out for Last Law of Attraction, I mean, with the different colors and the script, I
Yeah,
completely understand now.
thank you. Yeah, I was very intentional, and it's like I did a million things. There was a million things going on in my mind in terms of the concept. I also wanted colors that you'll notice the colors on that cover. They're not sharp. They're not loud. It's more like quiet and easy. And it's meant, it was my intention that it would just feel inviting. You'd be scrolling through it on Amazon and like you'd notice it. It would pop, but it wouldn't pop in a harsh way. And you'd feel like this invitation. And same with Just Feel Good, like having the flowers and the trees, and well, not trees but the branches and the nature and
Mm-hmm.
the blue sky. I Ever since I announced this new book and people mention the cover, I get so many compliments on the color, the blue sky, and how it gives
Mm-hmm.
them this feeling of ease and warmth and invitation. And that was exactly what I was going for, and that's exactly why I drove myself crazy revising the cover hundreds of times, playing with alternates, not just with the sky or this, but other different things, until finally deciding on this.
Mm. Yeah, I love the blue because you're right. It brings in peace and calm, and while it can bring in joy as well. When you think of a summer day or when you have blue skies. So I think it's perfect.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. And there's a version of it where like it is what the cover's right now, but there's no scroll. It's just feel good with the sky in the background.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, there was something about it that it felt generic. It felt empty. It felt like something that like you could just see anywhere. It just felt like something was missing. So I had to find like, what can I do to enhance that and make it stand out and make it different than what someone might be used to seeing. Because the one thing that I want to do, you never want to, in my opinion, never want to make your cover obscure the title or confuse the reader or the prospective reader.
Mm-hmm.
But as long as you can make it clear, you still want to make it, you want to make it clear that your book is different. Like you're not like everybody else. They're in for a different experience, not only through the cover itself, but more importantly, the inside content.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Because you don't want to be, like you said earlier, dumped into a grouping with other authors of similar books because
Mm,
yours are so different that you want to stand out.
yeah. And thank you. It's the goal. And you could tell even like the covers, they look so different from one another. So um as a self-publisher and someone that designs their own covers, another frustration is you get a cover that you think is perfect, and then it's awesome, but then you can never use that again. Like I could never use the formatting or the color sequence of the last Love Attraction book you'll ever need to read, because it'll create confusion. It's like, so like once you get that, it's like, you better enjoy it, because now you got to come up with a brand new concept and something else that you could fall in love with.
Right. Yeah. So for your brand new book, what is one guarantee that you teach in the book that will help our readers?
So it sounds it sounds almost ridiculous to say out loud, but it's really more like the idea of like, all you have to do is do this. Like if you want to guarantee a result, all you have to do is literally just feel good for a few minutes a day. And if you don't believe me, the beauty of this is that's okay, because again, just feeling good is a win in and of itself. So you'll see eventually. I mean, you'll see if you do it. But the guarantee, like, in order to guarantee that this works, is you just have to do it. You just have to say, okay, let me know based on my own personality. Is this easier to do at the beginning of the day, at the end of the day, in the middle of the day? When is it easy for me to do? But whenever it is, I want to be intentional by taking a few minutes out of the day and just feeling good. And not even like trying to force it, not even trying to require that I get certain things in a certain time or in a certain way, but I just give myself permission and I give myself space to just feel good, whether it's through gratitude, whether it's through taking a walk out in the sun, whether it's through calling a friend, whether it's through watching, a funny video on YouTube, whether it's through anything. I just want to give myself the gift and permission and an opportunity of just feeling good for a few minutes.
It does so much for our nervous system, for our confidence, just on so many different levels, taking those few minutes for ourselves. And we're often told that taking, like self-care is selfish. We don't need to take time for ourselves because there's so many other people that are calling us in so many different directions. But I think it's so important, even if, like you said, just take 5 minutes and go for a walk or go outside and get some fresh air, because it's just so important to our health and healing process.
Absolutely. And some people, they're so good at bending over backwards to be there for other people. And I say, okay, if that's true about you, well, then let's be really strategic about this. If you really want to be of service and of benefit and of use to someone else, the best thing you can do is take care of yourself so that you are a better, efficient, more aligned person.
Right.
Because you really want to, I mean, I don't recommend bending over backwards for people, but I do recommend being in service to people and helping
Mhm.
people. And the best way that you're going to help people is that if you're your best self, if you are, mentally relaxed, if you are
Mhm.
refreshed, if you are present and set within yourself, and you're giving yourself, and you're not burdened, and you're not overstressed, and you're not overwhelmed, that's how you really contribute to yourself and the world around you.
Yes. Yes. We need to keep our own cup filled up so we can help others fill theirs.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
They tell us every time we're on the plane, put your
Mhm.
mask on first. And yet
Right.
people don't really get the message.
Mhm.
It's like, you got to put your mask on first. Otherwise, no one's going to be helped, including yourself.
Yeah, that's so true. So where can we find all these amazing books that you're writing and sharing with us and bringing into the world?
Well, thanks for, I mean, obviously, if you check your, I'm not sure, what countries people are listening here from, but you check your local regional Amazon or Audible or Apple Books for the audiobook version. But anyone in the United States, if they just go to awesomemarvelous.com, that'll bring up my site that has direct, easy links to all these books on Amazon. So just go to awesomemarvelous.com and you'll have everything that you need.
Sure. And I will link that below for sure,
Thank you.
because that, I mean, just want to have one-stop shopping. So
And by the way, you see, it'll be no surprise, I designed that website also. And it's
mm,
so basic. All it is like, welcome, here are our projects. And it's got the images of what I'm doing, and you click on them and you go to whatever that thing is. Nothing fancy, no bio on me. Not that that's a bad thing, but it's like, I figure if people are going to that site, it's really the only value that I can give them is hopefully the books themselves, not a write-up on my accomplishments, or again, there's nothing wrong with that, but for me, they're going there, it's for that specific reasons. That's what I made that for.
mm, that's really interesting, because most people, want you to know what they're about and want you to know where they're coming from, why they did this or why they're, creating these projects. So
Yeah. And by the way, I could be wrong as I say that. Like that thing where people put their bio and they put something about themselves. I mean, hopefully they'll do a good job of it, but there's value there. But me, I have this personality. You can tell it's kind of like an offshoot of how I refuse to put my name on the book title of on the cover of the Law of Attraction book. Um, I'm like I try to like prop my book up as the star. Not that there's
Mhm.
anything wrong with the author being the star, but my own personality. It's like the book is the star and the reader is the star. And by focusing in that way, it helps me personally in my own writing approach write content that I hope helps them a little bit more.
Sure. Yeah, that's very generous. Yeah,
Thanks.
because and I guess I go at it the same kind of direction is that, what I do isn't about me. It's to help other people. And going along the way, just keep filling my cup so that I can help others to be their best selves and reach their goals and dreams and be who they're meant to be here.
Couldn't agree more. We're definitely on the same page on that.
Yeah, it's awesome. Well, thank you, Andrew, so much for being here. This has been a pleasure, and I really appreciate the time you spent with us. I'm Wendy Bjork, and I'm guiding women to live in truth, purpose, boldness, empowerment with hope, harmony, peace, and joy. So I hope you have enjoyed our time together with Andrew Cap, and make sure you check out his books. They're amazing. He has audiobook versions, he has Kindle versions, and he has the good old fashioned paperback. I recommend getting all three so that, as you can see by my book, it's marked up, it's highlighted, it's tabbed. That's the way I operate as a visual person. So it took a while for me to admit that and realize it and embrace it, but that's the best way sometimes that we need to learn. So thank you again. I appreciate it. And we will see you again soon. Take care.